Hello, welcome back to the Matt Pfeiffer Experience. I am your host, Matthew Pfeiffer, and I have on a very special guest today. Her name is Gabrielle, best husband, and she is all the way out in the DMV area. It's an area that holds near and dear to my heart. And if you don't know, I used to live out in the DMV, out in the Washington, D.C. area, and I absolutely love it out there. It's absolutely beautiful, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Gabrielle is a divorce attorney. She specializes in litigation, and she specializes in custody issues. And we're going to have a great conversation about litigation. We're going to talk about some of the best practices with litigation, how to prepare for litigation. With all that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our guest. Gabrielle, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time and some of your day. I'm going to kick it over to you and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew, and thank you for inviting me to the table. So I'm Gabrielle Best Husband, and I'm the owner of G Best Husband Law, and we are based in DC and Virginia. And how did I get started? I just loved advocating for people. That really was my start. I was passionate about just helping people through their journeys. I fell into family law because I wanted to make sure I was practicing a law where I was really involved with helping people, like working with people. A short stint I did another type of law where I was doing more transactional work, and it was just something that just was not passionate for me. So that's why I'm here. I'm definitely like family law. And also I think it's very important for people to understand, even though as lawyers we want to go into trial, I like the entire journey. So walking people, like, how do I help you get your desired outcome? And sometimes we may not have to go to trial, right? Like, I can get you your desired outcome through working with you and trying to settle and mediate the matter. So I'm really just about the journey and trying to help people to, change their lives in a positive way.
I hear that a lot with attorneys that, they actually get into family law in particular to help people out. Do you feel like that is more common? I think that the perception is that, all lawyers are sharks. You hear that things like that, and they're all just out there trying to get you and get your money. But from your perspective, do you feel like most attorneys that you know and that you've met, or even maybe have gone against, really just genuinely have their client's best interest in mind?
I think so. I think for family law, it's probably a little different. I know the stereotypical lawyer is conveyed as someone who's a shark, but I think that just makes good TV, right? The reality is we are all human, right? And most of us, for people to be in family law and be good family law attorneys, we have to love people because it is about the people. So for family law, I think why it is important to have a lawyer and to have someone who actually cares and is passionate about you, because the statute even demands you to look at the best interest. To know the best interest, you have to know your client. You have to know what they want. Yeah. You have to understand. You have to understand the dynamics of what's happening in the relationship. And with family law, it is a time that's very critical to most people. It's a big change. It's a life circumstance. Yeah. So having an attorney who really is passionate about you and not passionate about your bill is very important. And most of my colleagues, a lot of the people I work with who stay in family law, that's what we are. We actually really do like the people.
Yeah. You've been an attorney for a long time. And remind me, how long has it been?
It's been about a decade.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, I thought it was about a decade, but I didn't want to say speak wrong or anything like that. But so you've been doing it for a long period of time, for a decade, and there's been a lot of changes, over the decades. Not only with family law, but with best practices. I know that social media has changed family law a lot. What are some changes that you've seen over the decade that you've been doing this that has that may have been like the most critical change or the most drastic change that you've seen over the decade?
Okay, so I would say I've been doing it about a decade. I think the biggest change is social media, right? Social media has really changed the dynamic because now we can use anything in court, right? And now people are posting, people are texting. Before it was just, you can say something in a phone call and probably there's no recording. Now everything is being recorded. So that has definitely changed the dynamic. And in most cases, that has changed the cost of family law, because part of law, and especially in family law, becomes very important, is discovery. Now we're getting volumes and volumes of Facebook, a download from Facebook or any social media handle. And that's why one of the biggest things for me has been to change the nature of my practice to really consider a flat fee as opposed to what we would say the traditional billing. Because the costs are going up, I think one of the major concerns I hear from clients is, one, I don't hear from my lawyer, so lack of communication, and two, the cost. So for me, that's been one of the changes that I have implemented, really pushing this flat fee narrative where I tell you my cost up front. You can budget for it. You know what it is. And that cost encapsulates everything, all the communication, all the volume of discovery I may have to go through, right? So I think those are the biggest changes I've seen, really the social media aspect of it. Technology has changed the game. And because of that, I have had to think about how can I service my clients and consider still doing great work and understanding the cost dynamic as well.
I definitely want to talk about your flat fee because I think it's an area that not only makes you unique. However, I'm seeing that a lot of attorneys are changing their practice up a bit, whether it's going to a flat fee or going more towards mediation versus litigation, because they see, like you said, the cost rising. But I wanted to circle back to this social media thing that you mentioned, because I think it's so important. We talk a lot about social media, and I think that the general rule, like if you were to talk to people, the average person on social media, they'll say things like, I'm just speaking my truth, or I have a right to tell my side of the story. And but from your perspective, does that cause more harm for them? Is that what causes the cost to rise? Because now there's more information and more discovery, and now their soon to be ex has more ammunition, so to speak, in family court.
Correct. I think context, right? So during my strategy session with my clients, like when we first meet, I tell them one of the things I'm very big about is stop posting, stop texting, communication, because any communication between you and the other party can be used. I understand people need to speak their truth and you want to have your day in court, but what you post, the context may not be there, right? So you may post something that means something completely different, and now I have to try to convey that to the judge. They're always going to be competing narratives. So to avoid all that, I'm always very, very, very adamant that we have to limit communication, right? Especially and tell your friends and family as well. Don't have them posting for you, because anything can come in. And also, I just think it's just good practice to really be careful about what you're posting, whether or not you're in court, right? Because that's something that's a legacy you're creating. So you really have to you have to consider what you posted. How is someone going to look at it without knowing the backstory, right?
Have you seen or been a part of a situation where, and if you're able to, and don't feel obligated to, but if you could share a situation where you may have seen where social media has drastically changed the direction of a case or custody situation? Have you seen situations like that?
So without sharing too much, I think I see it a lot in custody disputes, right? Because especially pictures of the kids being posted, probably in not proper garments, that can wait. It's the judgment of the parent is being questioned, right? So it's not ultimately the post, but the fact that it was posted, and probably the contents of the post may lead the judge, the fact finder, to question your judgment. Judgment plays a big role in custody decisions, right? Because you're supposed to be the adult. If the other party's being more mature, or at least appearing to be, because they're not posting, that's where I see it a lot, custody disputes. I see it sometimes in divorces, especially when it comes to like financial transactions. One person is alleging not to have resources, yet their post of you in celebrating all over, right? Like you post, you went to this island, and then you're sitting in court saying you have no funds. How did you do this? Right, so things like that. Those are the types of, and it helps people to know what to look for. Then I know that I probably need to get a forensic accountant, because if you are actually, we all know that Instagram may not necessarily be real, but there may be something to it. So if you're posting these, that tells me perhaps we need to do a deeper dive into your finances.
Speaking of finances, obviously divorces can cost a lot of money. You know, I've seen and heard them cost in the millions, hundreds of thousands. I think that is where a lot of people are concerned, where they start to get worried. A lot of people may not even file because they're so worried about the financial aspects of the divorce. But you not only have come up with this flat fee, but you're very passionate about keeping those costs low while also simultaneously getting your clients the best results. Can you talk a little bit more on, first of all, why divorce costs so much? What typically causes a divorce to cost as much as it does?
Okay. And I would say, for me, just to clarify, I wouldn't say the costs are low. I think the costs are reasonable, and the cost up front. Because at the end of the day, it's comparative, right? And as you're saying, divorce can be very, very expensive. What causes cost to increase? Contention, right? I always tell people, we are only reacting to the other side, right? So you may be in a position where you want to do X, Y, and Z. If the other side is fighting a lot of motions, by the nature of the practice, we have to respond, right? Some of the things is lack of organization. If we know you're getting divorced, one of the things I do during my intake when you first sign up is really go through all your assets, all your liabilities. The more organized, the more documents you have, it makes the process go quicker because then we have everything handy. It's easier to compile, easier to synthesize. And also just coming in with an open mind. You're getting, if this is not a uncontested divorce, you're coming in not agreeing. You do realize that you not get exactly what you want. So you're hiring a lawyer to not be emotional. So I can't be as emotional for you. You want me to sit and manage your expectations and to also give you that legal advice with some neutrality involved, right? I'm advocating for you, but I have to take out the emotion. That being said, you have to be open-minded, right? Because what I usually takes it is when you're sitting in your position, and I'm client-centric, so I'm going to advocate for you. But if you're unrealistic expectation, you're going to increase the cost.
You know, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I've worked with people who felt like their attorney didn't like them or that they didn't see it. And like you said, sometimes they might even agree with you, but their job is, like you said, to be objective and to not put emotion into it and to get you through this divorce. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily line up with your emotion, where, I'm sure you've probably seen or worked with people who really actually are kind of using that divorce as like revenge because they've been cheated on or things of that. And as an attorney, you might say, or, I've seen and heard situations where it's like, well, that's not within your rights to take this or XYZ from this person, even though you might want to, even though you might feel like you're deserving of XYZ because the situation is so I agree and 100% understand how and why you might need to take that emotion out.
Right. I think it's very important to consider taking the emotion out of it. And again, that's why you have the attorney, right? It is hard. This is your life. I always tell people that you are living it while I'm just trying to help guide you through it. But you're living the day to day. So it's understandable that you're emotional, but you hired me to help you make those decisions without the emotion, at least provide you the information without the emotion.
Let's talk more about your flat fee. What does that look like? And is that something that is more common than what people know, or is this something that is unique to your practice?
So I would say it is. Of course, I want to claim that it's unique to my practice, but the reality is there are a lot of family law lawyers who are moving to flat fee. I think realistically, it helps with the communication, right? Because one of the major concerns for many clients is communication. And sometimes clients don't want to communicate because they see that every time they call or every time they email, they get a bill. They get it billed, right? They get a line item on that invoice, and then they're concerned about that. But a dynamic of family law is I need to know as much as possible to help guide you through that and get you what you need to promote your interest.
Yeah.
So I think for me, flat fee became really important to help with that. So I have transparent pricing and transparent communication. You can call me.
Yes.
Flat fee, I think people, when they think flat fee, they think it's cheap. Never said it was cheap. Mm-hmm. I said you will know your price up front, right? You come in, depending on the case, depending on where it is, we assess, and I provide a quote depending on what we need to do, and that quote up front, and it covers, and their timelines, their milestones. But at least you know you can budget and you can see, you know your price up front, as opposed to having to pay a retainer and getting an invoice every month, and you probably run up the same price or more. You may, right?
Yep.
So flat fees are important to people now, especially in this timing, just so you just know. I think knowledge is power, and that's why I believe in flat fees.
For the person who might be listening and might be considering a flat fee or might be looking for a flat fee attorney, what are some questions that they might need to ask? Because, I imagine that some attorneys, if they're charging you a flat fee, might cut out some services, or, if they're getting paid a flat fee, they may not represent as well and things like that, or at least that might be the fear that some people might have. If there's a flat fee, that, then that attorney could be cutting costs somewhere. What are some questions that someone could go in to ask their attorney to know, like, exactly what they're getting, or to make sure that they're being represented well in that situation?
Right. I think that goes across the board, whether you're doing flat fee or traditional billing. I think you need to understand the scope of your representation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it becomes a little bit more important with flat fees, because there are different ways attorneys do flat fees, right? So you need to understand, when is the money actually earned and what is the scope of the representation. For instance, in Virginia, even though we can do flat fees, your upfront cost goes into a trust account. I don't earn that money day one. I haven't done the work, right? So it's really important in that representation agreement that you understand when that attorney is actually earning the money, right? Because let's just use some unrealistic numbers. If the flat fee was $10,000, you retain 2 days later, you reconcile with your other party. Has that attorney earned the $10,000? I would think not, right? Not by our ethical rules. But I think those are things that you need to clarify. You need to understand, what is the scope of the representation? Are there any milestones when it comes to billing? What happens if I change my mind, if we reconcile? Just to understand when the money's actually earned. And this misnomer where it means flat fee means cheap, I think that's across the board, right? I think you need to do your research on the attorney. Ask them how many times have they been in court? Are they familiar with the judges in the county? We can't really always give too many specifics, because we can't, it's privileged information, but how comfortable are they with a spousal support case? How comfortable are they with a high asset case? So ask those questions and see if it's all about rapport, and see if you like the person who and responses that are being given.
I imagine that it's important to ask about communication as well. How often, like, what are the communication expectations? Is that something that people should ask and clarify, during their interview?
I think so. I think that falls under the scope of the representation and what you're being billed for. So yes, because I do know, again, there are a variety of ways to do the flat fees. I can only speak to the way that I do it. But yes, if you're concerned about, is it limited calls, limited emails, you should ask. And that should be clearly defined in the representation, because you should know, no matter if you're doing flat fee or traditional, you should know what you're paying for.
One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because you actually do a lot of litigating, where a lot of attorneys, they say they actually prefer mediation. And I'm not saying that you don't mediate, but you don't have a problem litigating. And sometimes litigation is very, very necessary in certain situations. How would a client know, whether or not that their situation might be something that needs to be litigated versus something that maybe mediation would work?
Okay. And I think that's where an attorney comes in, right? I don't want you to, you may not know that I am of the paradigm that we always try to resolve what we can. And the reason I say that, again, it goes back to cost. And not only, when I say cost, it's not only financial cost. This is an emotional roller coaster, right? So if we can do it as smooth and as amicable as possible, it saves some of that emotional heartache. So when I talk about cost, I'm always looking at what is the cost to my client emotionally and obviously financially. But your attorney will know if the other side, if what you want to protect your interests, we're not getting there, we're not able to resolve. We're going to have to go to trial. Any anyone, especially I know for myself, I have those conversations routinely with my clients. Like when we're doing status updates, this is where we are. I think we may be close. You may have to consider if this is actually what you want and you're not willing to come down, then we may have to go to court. But going to court, I'm going to tell you what I think. I can't guarantee what will happen, but I have to give you set your expectations as well. So I think an attorney that is what an attorney should be doing for you, assessing and giving you and telling you where you are in the process and what their expectation is, what's the likely outcome they're seeing.
Yeah. What about when it comes to litigation? What is the best way, or what are some common ways that someone should prepare for litigation? Obviously, it's going to be very stressful going into that situation. It's going to be raise a lot of anxiety, whether that person is going to win or lose. And oftentimes, well, I would say majority of the time, there's a lot at stake. I mean, obviously that's the reason why you're there for litigation. But what are some ways that people can prepare, whether it's mentally, whether it's emotionally, or even paperwork-wise, that you typically advocate for your clients?
I think I'm a big believer in therapy or some sort of counseling, especially for family law cases. This is a life change, and not all of us navigate changes very well. So I'm very big, and I always ask people, what is your support system, right? Because there's some cases where that family unit was the only support that person has, and when I see that, I encourage them. You may want to find a counselor for this period because you need someone. Because again, I'm not supposed to be your counselor because that is someone who's going to be invested in your emotions, and I can't be invested in your emotions to make a good legal decision, to make the best legal decisions for you. So I think being prepared emotionally, making sure you have a sound support system, be it therapy or not, and then being prepared document-wise as well, right? If this is a divorce and there's spousal support or any sort of child support on the table, we're going to have to know your income, your bank statement. So getting prepared, having a good document management system. If you have a computer, start saving stuff, create a little folder, start putting stuff in the folder, the more organized you are. And then ask questions. I am a firm believer as no question is a silly question. Because then if you're concerned or you're in doubt, you're not going to be prepared and you're going to feel it on the stand. Because in most cases, you're going to be put on the stand. You're the party to the case. And also your attorney should be prepping. You should be prepared. You should be asking, are you going to go through the questions you're going to ask me? Are you going to do, I do mock. I have other colleagues who will come in and I do it for them. They do it for me. We do mock trials. I'm going to have my client be crossed before we do the actual thing. So I think preparation is really getting yourself emotionally healthy, or as much as possible, having that support system, having your documents in order, and somewhat knowing what you want out of this journey.
In your decade of experience, what have you seen? What are some differences that you have seen between cases where, whether it's yours or other people or people that you're going against, where the team was prepared versus not prepared? I think that the perception is that everyone's going to be prepared, and that everyone's going to do the things that you said, where they're going to do mock cross examinations and things like that. Where I imagine that not everyone's going to do that. Not every attorney does that, and I imagine that there's some people that actually go into litigation very unprepared. Have you seen situations like that? What does that look like in real time?
I think I've seen situations like that, and I'm going to point to, I don't know how many people looked at it, but if you looked at the Johnny Depp trial, I like using that trial because it was in one of my courts in Fairfax County. I think that was that's an example of preparation, right? You can, even if you looked at the little memes, you could see the difference in how they prepared. I'm not saying someone was not prepared, but you could see a difference in the level of preparation. The level of preparation shows when you get to trial.
When you say the difference, which side did you feel was prepared?
I think the side that ultimately won was more prepared. I think
I just like to clarify. I don't want the audience to just assume.
No. I think that team had a level of preparation that was reflected in the throughout the case. I think they showed, right. And again, I think both teams were prepared, but the level of preparation showed, right. And again, being fully prepared doesn't mean winning. Winning is different, right? Especially in family law cases. I like to tell clients, I don't like to say win, right? Especially with a custody dispute. Is it really a win, right? I think we think about desired outcomes. I phrase it as the desired outcome. How close did I get to your desired outcome? But preparation helps. I think being prepared from the outcome. How knowledgeable is the lawyer about your case? Now, I am really good with names, but I don't think everybody is, and I don't fault people for that. But do they actually, when you call, do they know your case? Do they, when you speak to them, do they remember the basic facts of your case? I think that's important, right? And do you feel comfortable? Because again, it's desired outcome. We can't guarantee what will happen with that judge. We are both painting a story for the judge to then determine which picture they like. But preparation is key, and it's about you as well. I tell clients, I'm not waving a magic wand. If you have not told me something and I find out on the day of trial, I'm going to do the best I can. But if I'm blindsided, I'm blindsided, right? So I'm going to ask as many questions, but and that comes back to the flat fee approach. I want people to feel comfortable with communicating because that helps with preparation.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just like the old saying goes, a person who fails to plan is planning for failure. Is one of my favorite quotes.
Yes, correct. I think that saying is very appropriate in the circumstance as well.
Gabrielle, you are a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate so much your time. And it sounds like you are ahead of the curve when it comes to your flat fee rates, and we appreciate you getting your clients so prepared for litigation and, going to battle for them, because I know that it's stressful not only on your clients, but it's also stressful on the attorney, yourself as well. So we appreciate your time today and everything that you do for your clients. Can you tell people where they can find you at if they want to meet with you, if they want to meet with you for a consultation, or if they just want to support you or send your information to their friend or family member? Can you share with them where they can find you at?
So my handle on social media is at gbesthusbandlaw. And my website is gbh-law.com. My office is in Tysons and in Virginia, and all the information is on my website. But again, my social media handle is at gbesthusbandlaw.
And thank you all for watching and for listening. Doesn't matter where you are watching. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on your favorite podcast station, you can go down into the show notes and into the details, and you can find her information there as well. Make sure you guys comment and let us know a takeaway, something maybe that you have learned today. Show some appreciation to Gabrielle. You can also go to any of her social media handles, send her a DM, send her a comment. Thank her for stopping by. Thank her for any takeaways that you may have learned from today. Obviously, you can give her some follows and that sort of thing. And then if you are in the DMV area and you or someone you know might need some assistance, if you're going through a divorce, make sure that you consider Gabrielle Best Husband. So thank you very much. And I will see you all in the next episode. You guys have a great one.
Thank you.